Good evening, good evening, good evening. Let me welcome you to this Tuesday edition of Mango Tree Dialogues. As you know, on Tuesdays we talk about matters relating to the American scene and the international community, but with America specifically. And there are so many things that are happening in the world. So many things that grab our attention in the world and certainly in this country. And there are so many things that one would want to talk about. But let me hope, before we get into the discussion, the commentaries, let me hope that you had a very good day and that you're settled down now and joining me under the mango tree. All right, what are we going to be doing this evening? I just want to make a brief comment on the assassination of the apparent assassination, as the FBI has characterized it, of former President Donald Trump. And then to talk about a topic which I think is very important, but which is not given the amount of prominence as it ought to. And I can understand why, because the subject of this discussion is in fact the very agencies, the very media that should be speaking about the presidential elections in a particular way, in bringing the information to people. I'm going to talk about the role of the press in the presidential elections. What should be the responsibility of the press in the way in which it has sought to present the news, especially regarding the Republican nominee for president. And then later on, the last half hour of the program, I'll be having a discussion with the Mango Tree Squad, to friends, about the Kamala Harris's campaign, and what are the prospects for it, and how do we see it as she goes forward? What are the contours that need to probably be looked at that are not being observed? So that will come in the last half hour. All right, but before I jump into the Trump assassination, I must very quickly mention the arrest and arraignment of Sean Diddy Combs. You know that he's one of the most prominent hip rock and roll artists, and he has been arrested and indicted, and this evening in a court in the Southern District of New York for a slew of allegations regarding criminal activity. It's all there in the news, and you can appraise yourself of it. I will not do it on this program this evening, but I just want to mention it just to say that here is somebody who had lived a very storied life, who had brought a particular genre of music to the world and was at the very forefront of it and made fortunes in terms of whatever business acumen he had. he has been able to make fortunes, a very large fortune from this particular endeavor. But there is always that part of the human being and the human personality that, if not carefully guarded, can find itself moving into very demonic directions. I don't want to say much because of course, because the case is now a matter before the courts, and they will do what they have to do. But when you look at the whole contour of the allegations against him and the indictments that have come down and the many criminal acts that the court is indicating that he has committed, one sees a person who is out of control. One sees a person who believes, who came to the point that he thinks that he's a law unto himself, who probably thought that having a lot of money, gave him the right and the power to have dominance over other people's lives and to treat people in a very disparaging way, in a very horrible way, in a very demonic way, if many of the things that he is said to have done to women especially, should really bear out in the courts and he should be found guilty of them. Those things, money does not give you the power to have that level of control over people's lives. And we hope that young people who are looking on and watching this trial, as many undoubtedly who are fond of him and his music, will pay attention and recognize that if you do not police your life, the police and the authorities, law enforcement, will police it for you. That's all I would want to say about that at this time. All right, the apparent second attempt, apparent assassination of President Trump is understood to have taken place, of course, over the weekend. And in the vicinity of the Trump golf course in Palm Beach. We say we want to use the terminology that the FBI has used. And people must be very careful about what they hear, because the FBI did not say that there was a second attempt, to assassinate the former president. It said there was an apparent, because there are still details that are emerging, and they could not come to a conclusion to say that there was a second attempt when they do not have all the facts. The facts are emerging, and we will see as they question the perpetrator, the person who was lurking in the vicinity of the golf course. And so one has to wait. I think we still have to wait. And I would suggest that there is still more for us to wait for to see how this unfolds. But at this point, it is an apparent attempt at his life, so that we just don't run ahead and make all kinds of assumptions. I see, of course, that the Trump camp has latched onto this and beginning to see it as if it is the other party, the Democratic Party, that there is an attempt perhaps from that side, to demonize him and to cause all kinds of people out there to think that because of what they're saying about him, to think that they can take a shot at him. It is very unfortunate the way in which that campaign has been characterizing the issue, the way in which it has latched onto the issue. As a matter of fact, very quickly after the news broke, there was attempt already to get funding from the experience, pretty much like the first time when there was a real attempt on his life in Pennsylvania. But they're taking a line that will further cause volatility and violence, around this particular matter. And when you're in the public, you have to be very careful about the things you say. When you're running for public office, you have to be careful, because the vice president nominee on the Trump camp, on the Republican nominee, J.D. Vance, he said something about, that the public notices that it is only members of his party, that it's only the Republican Party that has twice been threatened with assassination, members of the party, at least Trump, referring to Trump, and that he hasn't seen any attempt from the other side. Now, that is very incendiary rhetoric. And it is what it is. It is rhetoric. And we have to be very careful about that kind of loose talk, coming from somebody who should know better. And I wonder if there is not even a smidgen of common sense in that kind of statement, or recognition of the volatility of the times in which we live and the dangers that such kind of rhetoric that they have been spewing, represent for the country. So I would say we need to tone it down. And it needs to be done, especially from those who are the chief perpetrators of this rhetoric. As presidential nominee Kamala Harris has said, there's no place in this country for violence. And she's perfectly right. You see, there has seeped into the politics a kind of violence that was never there before. And it is not just violence in terms of physical attacks on people's lives. The kind of rhetoric that is spewed, the things that are being said, the ways in which people's personalities have been demeaned and attacked. That is violence. And we all must be concerned that that kind of behavior is not given any kind of dignity, wherever it comes from. So we would urge that there be a toning down of the rhetoric, a return to the issues, talk about the people's lives, talk about what you want to do for people, talk about your program, your policies. How will they impact people's lives? That's what people want to hear. You're running for a job. Like I said in my last remarks last Tuesday, we need to treat these politicians as potential employees. You are the employer. With your vote, you're voting to say that I want to employ this person. And you must know the quality of the employee that you are going to put in the Congress, in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and in the White House. The tab is on you, the voter. Not only must you hit back against this kind of incendiary rhetoric that you hear, but you must listen keenly to what the candidates are trying to present, if it makes any sense. Because a lot of what I hear from the Republican side is a lot of junk. There's no attempt to really discuss policies as they ought to be discussed. A lot of meandering, and especially from the the candidate himself, Trump. Anyway, I won't get any deeper into that because I thought about it at greater length last Tuesday, and it's up on the site live, and you can go and check it out. That brings me to say, in the major aspect of what I want to talk about, the role of the press in the presidential elections. One doesn't want to get too deep in the weeds discussing what the role of the press is. I think it is well understood by most people, I would say. They disseminate the news, they discuss it, they analyze it, they bring information based on fact, or at least that is what they are supposed to do. And if they're not doing that, if the information they're presenting to you are not fact-based, then you need to treat it as rubbish. Because if it is not true, it is an attempt to mislead you in another direction. Most people know that the press is there to help them to understand the issues, to distill the issues in such a way, break it down in such a way to an almost what we call a granular level, so that people can really be able to absorb it. They cannot just eat the whole bread, but they can break it off in morsels. That's what the press has to do, break the bread off in morsels so that people can eat it and not choke on it and digest it. So having said that, one of the concerns that I have, and I've had it for a very long time, I had it during the time of the 2016 presidential run-up to the election, when Trump came on the scene. From he came down that golden stairway and started to trash the immigrants, Mexicans especially. The press has just been gawking over Trump. They have had an obsession with Trump long before that, because Trump has a very unique way, I would say, unique way of inserting himself into the news. And even before he contemplated going into politics, he was the darling of the media. They saw him in New York as a very excellent businessman. Well, as it turned out, you see what happened. He was indicted for fraud. His company, Trump Organization, under the Letitia James Attorney General, indictments against him that went out in the courts, and he's now down to pay almost $500 million. But the press at that time, lapping up everything that Trump did, paying keen attention to what he was doing. Fast forward to the elections of 2016, and they couldn't have enough of him. And ever since, Trump has always been in the limelight, putting himself in the limelight. He knows exactly how to play the press. And that has not changed in 2016. I heard Hillary Clinton lamenting almost on a discussion she had with Rachel Maddow on her program last Monday, the 17th, or the 16th. And she was really hitting at the press. in the sense that they have not shown the kind of responsibility that they should have shown in holding Trump accountable. And she appeared to be smarting from the fact that because the press did not hold him accountable as it should, that was part of the reason why Trump prevailed against her in the elections. And she's not far from the truth there. If that is what she's thinking, she would not be far from the truth. Because there was no, there, to my knowledge, and you can send me an email or WhatsApp me or some other medium. And by the way, if you want to WhatsApp me, you can send any information at all to 407-580-8664. And I'd be very happy to respond to that and to have a discussion with you. You know, if there's anything that you want to contradict or to comment on or to say anything to me about, I'd be very happy to do that. But she was not far from her assessment, because I would want to think that there has been no political candidate in our lifetime. And I make bold to say this. There has been no political candidate in our lifetime who has benefited more from free advertisement than Trump has done. There has been no, let me repeat, political contender for any office in this country, especially the presidential office, who in 2016 and even to the present time, who has benefited most from free advertisement than Trump has done. You can see it. As I said, he has a way of inserting himself into the news. He knows that he, especially in the present election campaign, he gets himself out there. And he knows the press so well. He knows how to manipulate them. He knows how to time things to get them running after things. So he will come with a juicy piece of news. Not anything that he believes in, he just thinks about it, and he knows that if he wants to get the press running after him, he only has to throw this out there and they will come running. And most times he has proven, if that is his intention, he has proven himself right. Any kind of red meat. Because he saw that Kamala was way ahead of him, and she was the talk of the town and on people's lips and so on, and the media was making so much of her. He came out with one big headline in his Truth social media platform. He came out with a big, bold, "I hate Taylor Swift." And that was enough to get a number of the people in the press running after him, commenting on that. It has no basis in fact. Well, he said it, but he does not support that with any argument as to why he may have this dislike for the young lady. But yet the press runs with that sort of thing, and he gaslights them, and he manipulates them, and he baits them, and they fall in for the bait. You know, so it is of some concern, because when Trump is out there, and frankly, you know, it doesn't matter whether the press is negative, the news on him is negative or positive. With the kind of personality that he has, all that he wants is to make sure that his name is being called. And as long as his name is being called and he's out there in the front of the news, because he wants to deny the other side any coverage, you know. So as long as he's in the news, whether for ill or good, no problem. I can't understand why the press cannot see this. And why is it that they, in reporting the news, they don't just go ahead and report the news concerning him if he says something and it is worthy of being repeated? That you repeat it, but you don't dwell on it. You don't bring him talking about it. The lies sometimes that he spews, and the press still repeats these lies over and over again. And I see it happening right across the press, from CNN, MSNBC, not to mention Fox. You don't have to bring him that often. Just report the news. Report what he has said. You don't have to bring long, extended versions of what he's saying, because quite a lot of what he's saying to his audience makes no sense and is an insult to the integrity of people and their intelligence. And when you report those things, you are also a participator in disseminating falsehood. You don't have to report it. You don't have to, although you think that, it is your call and your calling, but your calling too is to report facts and truth. And if you find somebody who is a purveyor of lies, you should not be in that person's company reporting these things. Oh, but if you don't report it, we won't get advertisements. So that's the expediency. That's the moral expediency that you're trying to suggest. Yes, I know that advertisements are the mother's milk for the survival of any media house. But how do you know that you're going to lose in advertisement? You may pick up advertisements, and it's from other sources. And it's better to get advertisements for talking the truth than to seek to get advertisement for supporting lies. That's how I see it. So what should the press be doing? As we move into the final days, weeks of the campaign, and we have just about 49 days, I would suggest that the press re-examines, one, how they're reporting the truth. But they must try not to speak in generalized terms. Like I said earlier, break things down, the whole loaf, into morsels and feed people with it. We tend to speak in generalized terms. For example, you'll hear the press says, Trump is a threat to the democracy. Yeah, that sounds good, but what does it really mean? How do you break that down to help people to understand how he's a threat to the democracy? How you perceive the things that he may do to threaten the freedom, the democratic freedoms that we have enjoyed over the years. You can't just say that and then bring on a number of analysts to just talk around that, and nobody zeroes in on how the granular, what I call the granular level, the grain of what he's saying and how it will affect you. You can't just come out and say Trump is a danger to America. What does that mean to the ordinary person who hears it? You have to help him to understand how is it that this man becomes a threat and a danger to your way of life. And there are many ways in which you can indicate that. I have some serious concerns about what will happen in this country if Trump should ever become president. And one of the things that I certainly do not hear people talking about, at least two things I do not hear the press talking about, and should probably be perceiving and understanding as they analyze what they call the Project 25. My feeling, and it is nothing but a feeling at this point, a belief, is that if Trump prevails and gets in, when he talks about being a dictator from day one, I think what he's really getting at is that long before he gets in there, during the transition process, his men, his minions, are going to put together a whole stack of executive orders to be signed. Listen to me now. I am not saying that I read this somewhere, heard this from some good source or anything. It is my opinion based on how I believe this man could be a danger to the democracy and a danger to the country. That they're going to put together a whole stack of executive orders for him to sign from day one, rolling back a lot of the things that have been mentioned in Project 25 and others. His finger is going to be tired signing executive orders. As I characterize it, it will be executive orders on steroids. I think that's part of what he means when he says that. But even if he doesn't mean that, he will have it within his power to do that. If he does get in, which I hope to God he doesn't, but if he does get in, he will be the first president in the history of the country who would have signed more executive orders in the first 100 days than any other. I have to hurry on. So let me mention the second one. Abuse of the pardon power that he will have. When his minions are out there carrying out Project 25 and undermining the laws of the country, which inevitably will happen the way that they have characterized how they're going to do things. I would like to suggest to you again, just my opinion and my reading of the situation, that you will have, I guess he would say to them, don't worry about the law. Just do what you've got to do. If there's any law that wants to prosecute you, here's a pardon. Again, not only will it be executive orders on steroids, but it will be pardon on steroids of those who are working on it. The moment the law fingers them to say that they have done anything wrong, he pardons them. And who's going to stop him? Who's going to stop him? Because he has unlimited, almost unlimited powers under the pardon protocols to do almost anything that he wants. So that's what I mean, that when the press must help people to be aware. And what about people coming in, that he has fingered as an enemy in the policy of retribution that he's going to carry out? And you're coming through the customs, and your name shows up in the machine when they look at your passport, and they say, oh, this is one person that we're looking out for. We cannot let you in, sir. Just sit in that room because we need to have a discussion with you. And then the harassment starts. You see what I mean, friends? And these are just a few of the things that I've been thinking of. And I say all of these to say that the press must be more prescient in the way in which they report on Trump. Not in generalized terms, but break things down and help people to understand what these dangers are and what it really could mean to the future of the country. Very important. So we'll see where we go with that. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the role and the responsibility of the press. All right, enough of me there now. We're gonna go to our panel discussion. So you can just take a little break and while we get our guests set up here, go and get some water, get a beer and whatever you can relax with. So we get our guests in for the discussion. All right. So this evening we have the members of the Mango Tree Squad. We have Mr. Brian Commission and Mr. Carl Brown. He's still logging in, so we'll see him shortly.
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't. Oh, my video.
Yes, there you are. Welcome, gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Hey, Carl. How are you?
All
Okay.
right. Yes, you're doing well. I think you heard the preamble, and especially the role of the press, and I was just wondering if you would share a thought on what you heard, or in terms of what your own perception of the role of the press in this present in the presidential elections. Some people have talked about it and are very concerned about the kind of coverage that is being given to Trump. Coverage, of course, that he does not deserve, but which can help him to keep in the limelight and to keep before people. However, insulting the message that he has to project. So, Brian, do you want to kick off and
Sure.
Our reflections?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, Ralston, it's always a pleasure to see you, and Carl. Thank you for having me again on your podcast here. As it pertains to the press, I have been saying this for a long time that Donald Trump is good for the press, period. There's no doubt about it. In 2016, they gave him billions of dollars of free time to the point where they were, going live to empty podiums, just in like just waiting for him to show up, like starstruck, people that are waiting for their favorite band or what have you. So I think it's good for them, mainly for the fact that they get to sell a bunch of ads, they get to do primetime show after primetime show about what did he say, or the outrage of what he said. In his mind, any news is good news, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. He has to be spoken about. That's what his main goal is. And a shining example of that was this week when, everyone was talking about how poorly he did in the debate. And then Taylor Swift gave her endorsement of Kamala Harris. So everybody's talking about that, and they're talking about the debate, just day after day after day about how bad he did, some of the incendiary remarks he's made. And he decides he's not in that conversation anymore. So he puts out, I hate Taylor Swift. And it's like everybody goes, wait, what? And they just shift the cameras back to him, and about what he said, So I think the press has a lot of work to do. I think they'll be like that quote unquote come to Jesus moment after the election is done and after he's no longer in the the common zeitgeist, and then they'll have to move on and it'll be something else that they'll latch on to hopefully get those ads into homes, so that's my general impression so far.
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, I did a lot of what Brian said, but it really also raises the question of intelligentsias, Is the press that ignorant of their behavior in regards to how they're presenting the facts? Because one of the things in this country, which is somewhat rather evident, is the simple fact that we don't develop any critical thinking. And since we don't develop it, in fact, we make sure that our audience doesn't have critical thinking so that they can be led in any particular direction. Yes, Trump loves to be always the person that's always front and center. I still have my fears that even though it looks good where Kamala is concerned, and they're repeating over and over that it's still close and it's a razor thin difference between them. I have my druthers in as far as feeling overly confident, and I really want really to see him crushed. And I don't know how far we're from that, but in essence, the audience are mindless folks in general, looking for the actions and just not developing the simple fact of pulling facts from and objectivity in what they're hearing versus the narratives that being thrown at them. So, the prerequisite of fairness is not there, obviously, and I'm still overly concerned of how things are going. Ditto to Brian.
All right. Last week I don't know if you guys heard the presentation, but I talked about the effect of the two campaigns. That on the one hand you find the Harris campaign, there is a kind of joyous spirit and a jubilant spirit over there. And on the other side you see this kind of grievance-ridden kind of persona, where there is no discussion of anything meaningful, but people, they're just there just because they have to be there. I sometimes look at J.D. Vance and I said to myself that at times that he would have preferred to be somewhere else other than at that stage at that moment, because they have nothing to say, to the people. So you're dealing with two campaigns and two different realities in terms of the general effect, how they present themselves to the people. And that is why when Kamala say that people are really getting bored and leaving, that is what she's talking about.
Yeah. I really think so I think people are underestimating JD Vance.
Okay.
I really believe that. And the reason why I say that is that this dude is Harvard or Yale educated individual. I think he's in a very tight position. Um, I think in order for him to gain power, as they said, they probably went to him and say, listen, your objective is to just go out there and make Trump look good, right?
Mhm.
And I think that waters him down a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. He
Mhm.
has said a lot of horrible things as it pertains to families, women. He has a very misogynistic and myopic view of the way the world works, right?
Mhm.
But that being said, I also believe that he is in a position where he can't define his own role in
Mhm.
this campaign, right?
Mhm.
He can't outshine Trump because
Mhm.
we saw that with Scaramucci, right? And he can't be too much MAGA because we saw that with DeSantis because everybody will call him a mini Trump, So he has to pull it back and be what Mike Pence wasn't, right? And Mike Pence, as bad as he was still beholden to the traditions that held the country together, right, for 248 years. His role, number one role is to, if it comes down to a repeat of 2020, is to send it back to be counted again. That's all he's there for. And I think he knows that. And he goes out there and he doesn't know, like you said, he doesn't know what to say. And he seems like he would rather be anywhere else because he can't define his own role in this campaign. And it's a tough place to be in, I think.
So what I hear you say before I come to Carl is that he's trying to be an actor, but
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
he's
because
being
for example,
doing a very poor job at
oh
acting.
yeah, because anything he does is bad, right? Because
Yeah.
if he speaks his own mind, it's going to say, "Oh, well, that's not what Trump is saying." And you saw what happened on the debate where Trump said, "I didn't speak to JD about that." He disavowed.
Right.
Okay, but if he follows Trump, it's like, okay, well, how far do I have to go to follow this guy? And if that means, the quote crazy cat ladies and all this other stuff,
Mhm.
he takes the heat of it, and Trump doesn't. You see, so he's essentially just, a whipping boy, for lack of a better term, to take shots from the media, to take shots from the public, and I'm telling you, it takes a specific kind of person to sit there and just take that all in because it doesn't serve him. You know, he's just a useful idiot for lack of a better term, you know.
That's right. Carl.
Well, to continue on the Brian words there, one thing earlier that Trump's mother said, and Trump himself also said many years ago, 2002 around, Trump said, if there is any party that I'd ever be with at the time would be with the Republicans. Why? Because they're so weak and they're easy to be broken.
Yeah, he could
And
say
J.D.
that.
Vance is he's a perfect personification of that.
Yes.
J.D. Vance will sell his soul to get the power. He was a never Trumper. He was many things. And if there's anyone that folks should really be saying that they don't know, it's J.D. Vance, because he is anything that you want him to be. And he has illustrated that clearly. So, Trump doesn't respect him.
No.
We can tell Trump respects no one besides himself. And he already noted that he shouldn't have had JD. So he is, as Brian's saying, he's in a very precarious position between
Yeah.
a rock and a hard place.
I also
Yeah.
to tag off of that real quick, I also believe that the pick for him was it was based upon the fact that Trump believed it was smooth sailing to beat Biden.
Yeah.
Right. So because he just was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'll just pick anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And who's this guy? Yeah. Like he was a senator for less than 2 years. Right. So it's like, yeah, I'll just pick this guy. He's just a pretty face and, he's from central casting, as Trump would say. And, it won't matter because he's just going to do what I say, and if it comes down to what happened in 2020, go back to the States. And this week he said that. He says he could not come out and say that he would vote in favor of whatever the voters had during the election. He couldn't come out and just say no. I wouldn't send it back to the States. I would do it based upon the tradition like that. And that's exactly what Trump wanted to hear,
And he should have known that it defies common sense that given the public denunciation of what they were saying about the Springfield and the Haitians in Springfield, that you don't double down the way that he did to corroborate what you're saying there, that he'll say anything, even if he doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
And there's no kind of personal chemistry between the two guys. It is like night and day. And how are you going to come together and say you're going to win an election?
Yeah,
and you look at the people who are at Vance's public presentations. You can almost see a contrast between them and what you see at Trump. At least Trump presents a little entertainment to them with the lies that he tells. But Vance is not even capable of, he stands there and he has nothing to say to people because like I said, he's torn in his mind as to what to say.
He doesn't have a personality. He's exactly what Carl said, a chameleon. He tries his best to adapt to the environment he's in at the time.
That's right.
And if he's playing to a party of one, he's always thinking, well, what does Trump want me to say here? I want to say A, B, C, D, E, but he wants me to say X, Y, Z. So when they come out and say to you, hey, do you denounce the fact that, this disgusting lie about Haitians in Springfield, Ohio? He goes through the Rolodex in his mind. It's like, well, if I say, yeah, it really was a made up story, then that's going to hurt Trump. Therefore, it's going to hurt me because he's going to be mad at me, and then he comes, so if I have to create something, I'll create something, which then is like, okay, I'm doubling down on this horrible statement that was made, number one. And then number two, it paints me as the bad guy. Okay. nobody went directly at Trump after that. They were like, "Did you hear what JD said? This guy he's weird and he's crazy and he's, and he's just the punching bag. I just think he's there to just be the buffer between the media, the voters, and then when he loses the election, or if he loses the election, he's gonna blame JD. Oh, well, I should have picked a different running mate because JD was weak. He wasn't the right guy to put out there. And
He's gonna blame him for losing.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, before we go to Tim Walz, because we have to balance it since we're talking about him. Any final word on Vance, Carl?
No, there's not much more you can
There's no more to be said that has not been said. All right, as you're talking, where are you with Walz?
Oh, well, that's a whole
Supporting the
different
ticket.
story. I didn't know too much about him initially, but I must say I was impressed very quickly. Why? He's a natural. He's a what you would call a down-to-earth, wholesome kind of character where a lot of Americans can connect with. He just looks like a good grandpa that everybody knows, It's great that he was a coach, a teacher, all of those things everyone can relate to. But it's also the way he speaks and how he presents his thoughts. His vocabulary is plain and understandable. He's a statesman on top of that as well, So he is an excellent addition for comedy. I really feel so personally. And I think they really look like they hit it off right off the bat. And what a combination. They kicked off with a lot of electricity and sparks, and the energy was there. So I have a lot of good feelings where he's concerned. Bright, quick wit, and his comments just really hit home. He's got a sense of humor. His whole combination is really pretty good from my standpoint.
Like I say, he's a natural, so he doesn't have to calculate and think through things. It just flows.
Absolutely. It just goes.
Sure, Brian?
Yeah, it's funny. When I heard that he was a teacher, I was like, yeah, this guy is pegged for a teacher, perfect. He has just the right amount of cringe, he has just the right amount of like fun and exciting. And I think what it is, it's confidence, right? He has that air about him that he's okay, he's okay with laughing at himself and being, just the old guy in the room per se, like he knows how to connect with people on a personal level. That was very indicative when he went to the shop to get sandwiches that day, and he's like, yeah, and he to the point where he even knew what sandwich to get in that town. He's like, oh, if you're gonna come here, come get this sandwich because this is the sandwich. I don't care, and he went into this little, thing about why it was a good sandwich. And you don't know where this place is, you don't know who works there, you don't know any of the history of the place, but I'll tell you, I'm like, man, I really want to go there just to see how good this sandwich is. It's like when someone says to you, oh, you gotta go.
Brian, you muted yourself.
Sorry about that. Yeah. You have to go to Philly to get like a Philly cheesesteak. And the next question is, oh, where should I go? And folks will say to you, oh, you can go to these 5 places. And then like a true Philadelphia would say, wherever you are at the time, right? That's where you go. And Tim brings that ability, like that way to connect with people and make them feel comfortable, make them feel whole, make them feel heard, and then the fact that he's such a family man, like you just, like Carl said, he's just like the full package. And I think she really did pick a great running mate. No one else I don't think could have captured that energy and that concept of joy better than this guy,
Yeah, he's quite a contrast to the other person in terms of food selection, because the other person doesn't seem to understand how to get donuts.
Well, it shows, yeah, perfect example, right? And I think it shows you how much thought went into their selections, right?
Yes.
Trump must have said, like, yeah, just bring me anybody. I don't
He
care.
did.
Because
Yes.
ultimately it was like, all right, he's a young guy, and if something happens to me, then he's gonna go full MAGA and he'll be
Yeah.
president, you know?
I
Whereas,
think that Trump's boys and Musk might have been
yeah,
instrumental in pushing that.
whereas like I think Kamala, as much as she had a very truncated selection process because Biden dropped out,
Yes. Uh-huh.
it would not surprise me if I found out, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, that she had specific people kind of picked in mind if she was going to
Mhm.
be the candidate. And people says, yeah, you could go with Josh Shapiro. He's perfect for
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But this guy here,
Mhm.
he's gonna capture the whole like blue wall, as they say, because they're all in that region. And if
Yeah.
you want to reinforce that blue wall, he's your guy. And I think she hit it out of the park.
And he has had executive experience.
Oh, absolutely.
The man is a successful governor of a big state.
Yeah,
That's right.
very large state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he has a good combination.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. The campaign itself now, the zeroing on Kamala Harris and where they are now in the campaign. We're just about 49 days out
Mhm.
from the elections. How do you see it going, and what do you think ought to be done that might not is not being done and that ought to be done?
Hmm.
Carl can give it a start.
Interesting. My projection is that I'm looking back at a little history.
Mm-hmm.
Biden got in through the efforts of South Carolina, Clyburn there,
Mm-hmm.
and the Black vote. We are a people, we are a nation within a nation in some aspects where we're concerned in this country. And we, again, have the potential to do what we've done historically in the past, which is no one else can bring 97% of a group vote as we did like for Barack Obama. I don't think we might bring 97%, but our percentage is going to be relatively high again, where Kamala is concerned. I'm a little concerned of the amount of blacks that appear to, from the interviews and what I've been watching, where some blacks are going to Trump for reasons that are beyond my reasoning. I don't understand. But I really feel at this stage of the game, if we do what we have done in the past, she's got the black women's vote, which is probably the most powerful group of women, highest educated in the land, collectively will be there for her. I strongly feel that with that whole collection of Black people coming together, I really think that that's going to push it through. That's going to make the difference.
Bran?
I might take it a little bit more granular than Carl. I think women, period. Black
Yeah,
Mm,
women,
black and white,
white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. I
Asian.
think women are going to be the resounding voice in this election. I think from a standpoint, and again, here's a man, talking about women, which is the problem. Okay, we have a lot of work to do as men in this country, uh,
Yeah.
and I think this particular election demonstrates how some of our misogynistic viewpoints have gone way too far. When you have things like Project 2025, where you have, giving police the ability to monitor women, whether they're getting an abortion or not, like things like that. I think women are going to be heard whether they are red, blue, or independent. I think you're going to find a lot of folks who are traditionally Republicans voting for Kamala Harris. And I think it's going to come down to healthcare, right? Women's
Mhm.
rights.
Right.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, let's do a little thought experiment here. At the end of the day, even if you vote for Trump, you may like his immigration policy, right? But guess what? He's still gonna be coming after you if you choose to have health care for your body. He wants to control your body. He wants you to have that baby irrespective of what's going on. Okay, so that's a personal issue now.
Mhm.
Yeah, immigration is a nationwide issue, right? But if I need to go to the doctor and I can't get help because of the fact that the doctor has to call up their lawyer to determine whether or not I can get care or not, that hits home. That hits home for every woman in that family. Mom, daughter, aunt, grandmother, everybody. So I think women as a whole are going to be the ones that come out and say, you know what? I want to stop Project 2025.
Mhm.
And if that means voting blue this time, I will vote blue. And let's stop Project 2025. And I think that's what we're going to see. As it pertains to what's not being done, it's a hard thing to think about because I think Kamala is spending a lot of time in some of these southern states, like here in Florida, in Georgia, to kind of to bring that joy, to bring that energy. So I don't think she's not doing anything specifically. I think they're doing a lot, and will it be the change maker? I think people know who they're going to vote for. I really believe it. I really believe that people are going to say enough is enough. And this Project 2025 situation, the childless cat lady's comment, the issue with Springfield, enough. And women are going to be the ones that save America once again. Derek?
And not to mention the Taylor Swift endorsement.
Oh, yeah. And then there's Taylor
People
Swift
talk
and
about celebrity
yeah,
endorsements as not being valuable, but
yeah.
this time around, I can tell you that
Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish came out
endorsement is
today.
gonna ring.
Yeah, Billie Eilish came out today. She has well over 200 million subscribers and followers, and she came out and endorsed Kamala Harris as well. Again, if you walk away from any other topic, okay, it's the number one topic is going to be Roe. It's going to be like, hey,
Oh,
remember
yes.
they took your rights away with Roe, and they want to pass it against the land, whole over federally. Just come out and vote for that topic. And most folks, believe it or not, they're one issue voters. They are
Mhm.
issue voters.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't believe that immigration will trump women's rights in this country. I don't believe it.
No, it's
No, I
not.
don't think so. I don't think so. And the looking back at there are two factors that could have hit against Kamala, given the historical precedents in this country, and that is the misogyny and the fact that she is black.
Yep.
And this time around, and those two sentiments, of course, especially the misogyny, it's over in the male camp.
And
And
it's
also,
Trump again. This is the guy that was hovering over Hillary in 2016,
yes,
demonstrating that misogyny. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
you
And then and the blackness issue
yeah,
is something that some men may have a problem with, some white men, which who won't be a very serious factor in the elections. Certainly not when you put that up against the number of women, and especially young women,
yeah,
who are galvanized, who have been galvanized to get out there and to make sure
yeah,
that this thing happens. And I think we're going to be in that side is going to be in for a rude awakening,
yeah.
when the votes coming, which brings me to another point, and we're going to be running off the protection of the integrity of the vote
Mhm.
Mm.
at the level of the secretariats in each state, especially the red states. How do we protect the integrity of the vote? Because it is one thing for people to be energized. They go out there and they make their votes, and then it is sabotaged. How do we really, guard against this?
Well, I think
If you have a thought on that.
one of the big things that has already been done,
Mhm.
and the press has, in particular, where Georgia is concerned, right down to the local levels. Georgia is a focal point for sure, but the press and I think the party, the Democrats, are looking at it and have made certain preparations for any of the possibilities of
Yes.
vote denials and things of that sort. So they've gotten so much focus on it. That I think to some degree, I'm hoping that it will have some kind of alert watch so that everyone is making sure that everything moves in that direction. Last election was probably one of the best and cleanest elections ever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
of course, the Republicans said nay to that. And again, but I do think that this election too will look pretty fairly well, you know?
Brad?
Yeah, I agree. I think this narrative of voter fraud and it's usually always by the same group of folks. It's folks that lose the election, like if you can't win, then say that it was rigged, you know. The other part of it too is the hope is that there will be so much voter turnout that it won't even matter. Like
Yeah,
it will be
it has to be overwhelming because
yeah,
once it
Yes,
gets to the Supreme Court,
yeah,
they up there can tamper with it.
yeah, it's like even if you find, a handful of issues with voter fraud, it's like, oh, guess what? Yeah, you still lost by 100,000, 200,000, in that particular location. So I really believe ultimately that you'll find that the actual situation will be fairly similar to what we've seen in previous years that, it won't be anything worth talking about because of the fact that our elections are pretty secure. And then don't forget, our last one was the most secure during a pandemic. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like we pulled that off during a pandemic. Give the American people some credit. Like I think they do their civic duty. They come out and vote and let the chips fall where they may.
right.
Right. Well, on that note of confidence, any final word, Carl?
Well, I'm just looking forward to listening to the VP's debate, just
Yeah,
out of
1st of
curiosity.
October, I think.
See, right. And thanks for the correction. My wife told me, "Oh, it's today," and
Yeah.
everyone's so eager and ready to take a look at that. But anyway, I think right now, I think Kamala and the Democrats have done a pretty good job
Oh, yes, in a short time. Yeah.
in the short time that we've had. So, by the grace of the Almighty, let's hope and pray that it goes to the way we speak.
Mm-hmm. Brand,
Yeah,
final
I
word?
I will say I've voted, throughout my youth a few times. I think this is the most excited I've been to go vote. You know what I mean? To
Mm.
cast my ballot. And I think the reason for that is compartmentalized into three pieces. One, I think it's more than time that we elect a woman to lead this
Oh,
country.
yes.
You
Time
know,
come.
yeah, every other, advanced civilized country has done it. It's something that after 248 years, the thought that we haven't even come close to it, other than making, voting for her to be VP, is kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you. Second of all, the fact that she is a mixed race person, black and of Indian heritage. I think it regalvanizes the promise of America that, yes, you can do anything in this country. It's
Mhm.
going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. And you're going to take a lot of guff from a lot of people. But if you are persistent, you know, um,
Yeah.
people will see your value and you will continue to grow. And I think putting her at the top and demonstrating that is going to be a wonderful day in this country.
Oh,
And
yes.
last but not least, like I've said to my girlfriend, I've said this to my family, I will be at that inauguration,
All right.
and I really want, if it's my hope to bring like my young niece to say, hey, you want to be president? Guess what? You could be president, and
Just look at that lady taking the oath.
yeah, now, of course, you don't have to say, oh, she's the first because, a lot of other nations have done it. But I think the messaging is there. It's like, look, you know,
First in this country.
yeah, the
Yes.
tenacity, the grit and the hard work will get you to the highest lengths, wherever wherever your heart's desire, that's where it'll take you. And I'm excited for those three reasons. So I look forward to casting my vote this November.
Yeah.
Okay, brothers. Thanks very much for joining me this evening under the mango tree.
So
There are no mangoes on it now.
Oh,
out of season.
All eaten, out of season.
and all eaten.
Yeah.
All eaten. So I'd like to thank you for joining me and for helping me to distill the issues, because this is what it's all about. And we hope that those who listened and those who will get on the broadcast and follow up on what we have been talking about will get some enlightenment, or at least will see the issues probably in a different way than they might have been seeing it.
That's all we could hope.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, I said that's all we can hope. Yeah.
Yes. So we do a part. So then let me bring the program to an end and thank you, friends, for joining us. And wish for you a very good night. And whatever you do, walk good. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.